Teddy covers right now, representing Las Vegas, Nevada, Michigan alum in the house. Teddy covers, how you doing on this Tuesday morning?
I'm frustrated, Jimmy. I really am. All I've done for the last week is to look at a card with, half winners and half losers and throw out the winners and keep the losers. Did you hear me on the show yesterday? I'm like, let's see. I lean towards Sacramento. I lean towards the Pistons. I lean towards the Thunder. But what am I going to bet? The Warriors. I know the Eagles can't be laying butt, and I talk myself. I mean, it's just one thing after the next. So I'm frustrated this morning, Jimmy. How about you?
I came excruciatingly close to some big scores. I had the Flames on the -1 line, plus 140 money line, plus 400 puck line. They're up 4-2 in the third period. They end up pushing the game in overtime. My morning show with you, I was very good. My additions in the late show ended up giving me a losing night. Lost the Booker prop by half point, but I went 3-1 on the NBA plays. The 3 NBA plays I made with you here on the morning show, I went 3-0. My morning play early with the prop for Booker lost, and then my 2 additions on the late show lost. So I can feel your frustration, but you're leading us towards cash, and I'm very interested and excited about capping this NBA card with you right now. We haven't even touched on it yet. My NBA record's still okay, not where I want it. Rafa, can we pop up the NBA record very quickly? Teddy covers, you are seeing things clearly. That's clear in NBA. It's a clearly clear, sorry. I don't need to, but we see that. And let's get after this card and let's get some winners. Have you made any moves? Have you got to the window with anything on this NBA card so far?
I did not. I was modestly tempted by Philadelphia. I didn't pull the trigger. I was modestly tempted by the New York Knicks. I didn't pull the trigger on that either. So that means that'll go 2-0 tonight, Jimmy. Yeah, sure. I'm seeing things reasonably well in the NBA. Unfortunately, and what's frustrating to me, and again, this will happen to someone that's been doing this for 20 plus years, as well as for newbies, but the frustrating thing for me is I'm not executing my game plan the way that I set out to execute it. In the NBA, I'm like, this is exactly what you're going to do. You're going to find your teams to bet on. You're going to find your teams to bet against. You're going to bet on and against those teams every single game. At the Utah Jazz, my number 1 bet against, I got it circled right here. I put 2 exclamation points next to it. Did I bet against and the plan is execute. All you got to do is bet against Utah. It's right there in black and white in front of you. And of course, last night, I lean, they were never in the game. To me, that's what's frustrating is when I see it, when I game plan it, and then I can't execute it. That frustrates me because I should be, that shouldn't happen on a regular basis. All that said, that's rearview mirror, man. You can't let yesterday make you crazy about today. But like I said, I'm happy to talk about all these games and why I didn't pull the trigger on any of them. Let's go.
Let's go. Start with Wizards, Hornets. Wizards opened up at -1.5, now -2.5. This total opened up at 234 and has dropped 5 points down to 229. It's amazing that a Wizards team that's 3-9 on the road can be favored against the Hornets, 5-8 at home. Wizards scoring 118.2 points per game, allowing 122.5 points allowed, getting distribution at 28.3 assists. Pace last 5 games, second in the NBA at 104.3. Why is this total going down? It's because of the Hornets' pace last 5, 22nd in the NBA with 97.6 possessions a game. Hornets allowing 113.1, only scoring 105.4. They allowed 71 second half. The Hornets allowed 71 second half points in that loss to the Hawks on Sunday. Ugly. That is part of a 1-3 5-game homestand. This is the last game of that homestand. They need a win bad. I know Borrego's just, come on, we got to go at least 2-3 on this homestand. PJ Washington, he exits the fourth quarter of Sunday's game with a sprained right ankle. So they allow 71 second half points at home in front of their home crowd. They're 1-3 on this homestand. They need a win desperately. Now they might not have PJ Washington, which is very important. The Wizards were just beaten up by the Clippers. They've won 1 of their past 6 games. They've allowed at least 125 points in 4 of those 5 losses. I want to take the Hornets here. I want to. I want to go against the market, but I don't think I'll get to the window. I'd love to hear what you think of this spot, Wizards Hornets.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is the fundamental question for this ballgame. I mean, it really is. How much better is Washington than Charlotte? You know, because the markets are saying right here that Washington's like 5 points better on a neutral floor. I don't necessarily have that. I do think the Wizards are better. I don't think they're five. My numbers don't have them 5 points better on the neutral floor. And Charlotte, so I mean, they're a relatively simple team to handicap in the sense of when they're a shooting team. All right, and when the Hornets face weaker defensive foes and they can get good looks from the perimeter, they're live in all these games. So I'm a little bit surprised by the Washington money. It's not my money. The under money, I understand. Borrego read him the riot act after that second half against Atlanta, and talked about the fundamentals of defense and getting back on defense. And you know, it's not the first time. It's not the first time he said stuff like that. So we'll see if this one takes for Charlotte. They're a very young team. I can understand the under money based on what Borrego wants to do tonight. I don't really see the Wizards money making a whole lot of sense to me personally. And you talked about the spot for Charlotte, but again, this is a lottery team. They're coming into the season knowing they're not going to the playoffs. They're not competing for the 8th spot. So to say they must win this game, they've had a bad homestand, I don't think there's that level of pressure for Charlotte, and the markets are telling us that.
I think that is a good point, a salient point. I know that if I take the Hornets, I'm going to be sweating buckets, drunk with my shirt off. I do not want to be in a situation right now with the Hornets ticket in my pocket. In all honesty, there's never comfortable wins with this team. Okay, let's move on to Nuggets Sixers. This is a really exciting game. Teddy, our Prince of the City, low bagger whom we love dearly, is going to be at this game tonight. And what he does, Philly boy, is he fades his Philadelphia teams with great pleasure. And he did last night, and with great success, I should add. And he's going to be on the Nuggets tonight at the game. Philly opening up at -4. There's a 3 now, you wager, but heavily juiced if you want the -3, -130. 4.5s at Heritage and Bovada, 4 everywhere else. This total opened up at 206. It's now up to 208.5. Sixers 12-0 at home. With that victory over the Raptors on Sunday, and what an interesting game there. The Raptors have Embiid's number. We just get in his head, and I'm surprised he's not mentally tougher. He was sat the whole fourth quarter. Philadelphia held on in that game. 11 turnovers in the fourth quarter. Tobias Harris continues to play very, very well. Matisse Thybulle, 20 career best 20 points, 5 3-pointers, I believe. Ben Simmons 16, 11, and 9. But Embiid, man, God, what are they going to do with him? But this is going to be an interesting spot up against Jokic. Nuggets pace last 5 games, 28th in the NBA. 28th. Sixers pace last 5, 10th in the NBA. The Nuggets already beat the Sixers earlier this season in Denver. Denver lost 105-102 on the road against Brooklyn. Jokic is playing better, but this defense allowed 66 points in the paint. And we're talking about a Nuggets team that's holding teams to NBA low, 101.9 points per game. You have Millsap and Barton. I know Millsap and Barton are great defenders. They don't clog up the paint at all, especially Barton. I mean, he's the perimeter defender. What do we think about Prince of the City backing these Denver Nuggets? And you've already talked about liking the Sixers, so let us know why you didn't get to the window of the Sixers. And then what do you think about this total that's gone from 206 to 208?
So Denver's lost 4 of their last 5. Okay, they're not playing good ball right now. Every one of those losses, by the way, stayed under the total. Their issues are pretty much exclusively right now on the offensive end of the court. But what really concerned me even more than just the losses, they've been getting clobbered on the boards. Twice in the last 4 games, they've had a double-digit rebounding deficit. One time it was a 20-plus rebound deficit. And that's effort, Denver doesn't feel to me like a team that's ready to flip the switch. And the markets are very high on the Nuggets. Make no mistake about it. Denver's defensive stats, like Utah's, are really strong. And the wise guy market tends to gravitate towards teams that have the stronger defensive numbers, which Denver has. hence the relatively cheap point spread ranges. Philly's playing good ball, and you talk about a team that hasn't lost at home. They haven't lost at home. It's a home court edge. There's a couple of home court edges that in years past haven't been worth all that much. Miami's one. We'll talk about in a minute. That wasn't worth anything in years past, and this year they're near perfect at home. Philly's another one where historically in recent seasons I've given the Sixers like 2 points. Home court avenging, nothing dramatic. This year that's been worth a little bit more. So why don't I pull the trigger on the 76ers? That's the key question here. What is it about Philly and about the matchup that made me concerned? And the matchup is Denver's defense, man. And the fact that the Nuggets already beat them once, and the fact that Nuggets have hung really tough in this series, and the fact that Nuggets have lost 2 in a row, and they're not a losing streak team, and this is their circle the wagons game. And Philly's won 2 in a row, and they've won 5 out of 6, and they're 6 out of 7. And I just worry about the little bit of fat and happy for the Sixers. So I didn't pull the trigger. Lean Philadelphia.
Yeah, the only thing about the fat and happy thing is I'm sure Embiid is extremely angry. So as the other Sixers will feel good about themselves, he's the straw that stirs the drink, and I expect him to be angry out there. And Jokic, we've talked, and Junior Brown's talked about Jokic not really being in the kind of shape that you want. You want to run Embiid into the ground, but Embiid knows not to follow you out into the perimeter. I don't know what to do there at this point. Dan Kelly says parlay Denver in the under. Wow. Okay, so Dan Kelly backing Denver. Interesting. Prince of the City says Philly got smacked by the Knicks and then won without Baby Huey. Gas Station Sushi says Nuggets lack leadership. Dan Kelly says Denver 4th and last game of trip. Philly 3 and 4, but not last night. And 3rd and last game of stand. And Michael Jordan, Denver is locking in Denver. Prince of the City says without Josh Richardson is key. And that makes sense. Okay.
That Josh Richardson injury is really important to talk about, okay? Because it may well be key, all right? And here's a guy, and you're going to find this on just about every team. Doesn't move the needle for the public, doesn't move the needle for the media, doesn't move the needle at all for the point spread. And yet, when he gets hurt, all of a sudden the team's not nearly as good. And you'll see this all the time in the NBA, where the key role player, all of a sudden he misses 2 weeks, and wow, guess what? They just lost 5 out of 6 against the spread. When you find those little guys that are meaningful ATS, but the markets don't adjust to, that's the way to make money in the NBA, period. So, astute observation.
No, it's a very important point. And he can lock people down, and the perimeter he can defend so beautifully. Wow, very, very interesting game. Okay, I've made no moves, and neither has Teddy at this point. Let's talk Hawks, Heat, next spot, Atlanta at Miami. Miami opening up at -9. There are 8.5s on the board here at Heritage, and BetOnline is total opened up at 218. There's now 218.5s at a few of the books. Hawks pace last 5, 15th in the NBA. Heat pace last 5, 29th. In the NBA, just 96.1 possessions a game. Heat beat the Hawks twice in a home-and-home in October, 112-97 at home. Trae Young suffered his sprained ankle. So then 2 days later, they beat up on the Hawks without Trae Young. Trae Young rolling right now. 39 and 30 in his last 2 outings. He's averaging 34.4 points a game over his last 8 games. God, very, very good shooter. Now, the Heat have their share of shooters as well. Hawks have lost the first 5 of those 8 games that Young was averaging 34.4, but has since won 3 straight. So we talked about them lighting up Charlotte on Sunday in the opener of this 3-game trip. So they're feeling good about themselves, and Young is rolling right now. Kendrick Nunn deserves a shout-out. It was our opening graphic in the beginning of this show, but 15.3 points per game. It's been 10 seasons since an undrafted rookie's averaged 15 points or more. Reggie Williams in 2010, and 70 years since one averaged more than Nunn's current 15.3. That'd be Frankie Bryan in 49-50. Very interesting spot here, Hawks Heat. What do you lean towards side total wise?
So I'm not betting against Miami right now, okay? But I'm not going to lay this price with the Heat. And we've seen it already on this homestand. All right. This was not a strong home court at any point over the last decade. I mean, it really hasn't been. Again, it's usually like a 2-point home court, point and a half, 2.5. Not a home court that you're like, okay, I'm not stepping in front of Miami at home. They've been money losers. They've been poor favorites. I made my money with Spoelstra over the years as on the road as a road dog. He's been really good in that role. And all of a sudden, the Heat come out this year and win and cover their first 8 at home. 8-0 straight up, 8-0 against spreads. You're like, wow. And then last 2 games on this homestand against the Wizards, they're laying 9.5. Don't cover there. Against Chicago, they're laying 7 in the Chicago line. Again, I'm looking at that. I'm like, that's short. That smells short. It smells bad, and it was bad. The Bulls were right there in it, and the Miami won in overtime, did not cover the number. So that 8-0 start is now 0-2, their last 2. Even though they won the games, they failed to cover the spread. And you look at what they've done for, their last 5. You have 2 overtime wins, a win by 3 over Brooklyn, a win by 9 over Washington. Not putting teams away. And I wouldn't necessarily expect that to change, So we have Atlanta coming off a win. Atlanta who's not playing a whole lot of defense on a regular basis. Atlanta who gave up 130 to Brooklyn and 158 to Houston. I can see them getting lit up in this game, and I can see them hanging tough throughout. And that, for me, is a clear recipe for passing.
Yeah, man, 50 Cal Davis is if Atlanta covers the game, it's going to go over. Thinking that the Hawks staying close to this game correlates with an over. I find this a tricky spot. All right, let's move on to the last game on this card, being Knicks Blazers. Blazers open up at 8.5 point favorites. There is a 9 now. Bookmaker and Bovada. This total opened up at 218 has shot up 5 points to 223. M. Williams liking the over in the Hawks and Heat spot. Knicks, Blazers. Knicks pace last 5, 19th in the NBA. Blazers pace last 5, 12th in the NBA. Knicks lost by a single point in the Mike Miller's debut, 104-103. Julius Randle missed those 2 free throws. Not to be trusted, Julius Randle. New York lost 7 games by 20 or more points. But what's going to change now that Mike Miller is at the helm? It's what you have to ask yourself, an important capping question. Portland, the stop is the first of a road trip. Knicks are going to play 4 games in 6 nights. And Blazers coming off a 108-96 home loss to Oklahoma on Sunday night. They shot 36% from the field, 9 of 33 from three-point range. Lillard, 8 of 24 from the field, 2 of 12 from three-point range. Carmelo Anthony, 4 of 18. He scored 9 points. Bazemore, 3 of 11. McCollum, 8 of 21. Is this a get-right spot for the Blazers here? Teddy, break it down, Knicks Blazers.
Are there get-right spots for the Blazers right now? They had a little bump. And I mean a little bump. When Carmelo first came into the lineup and, you got a Western Conference Player of the Week. And that was then and this is now. We're talking about a team that's been a bad favorite. I got them, with 3 point spread covers all year, laying 3 points or more. A good 33% ATS in this role. I'll start with I don't trust Portland to cover this number, okay? And that's where I'm kicking myself about the Eagles last night. Your handicap has to start with, can this favorite be laying? Or whatever, that's the way I start. That's the way my process started, is can I trust this favorite to lay? And Portland's not a favorite I trust to lay. I understand the spot. I understand they're coming off a bad loss. I understand nobody shot well. I understand the Knicks don't play defense. I understand all of that. I don't trust Portland to lay a price. So it's Knicks or pass a priori. And, you have the new coach bump. They played hard. They did. They played hard in the first game of the Mike Miller era. Now they got to do it, in Portland and hang tough for 4 quarters. I'm doing my best not to lose money with the worst NBA teams. That's why I'm not playing Charlotte plus tonight, and that's why I'm not playing Knicks plus tonight. The Knicks have been mediocre ATS. I'm not convinced that continues indefinitely. But if I had to play, it'd be Knicks or pass. I don't think Portland can lay this price.
Yeah. And this total shooting up. Do you agree with the opening at 218.5 at Pinnacle, now 223?
I'm not. Maybe they're thinking Melo's going to go off against the Knicks. I mean, I really don't know what the. I don't think the Knicks want to play fast. Their goal is to keep Lillard out of the paint and throw everything at him that they can. But I mean, can the Knicks design an effective defensive game plan at this stage? I'm not convinced that that's the case. And if Portland pushes, then and this may well be this move, a significant move, may well be a reaction to some tidbit out there that Portland's going to push tonight after being fairly passive in their last contest, and that merits the move towards the over. I didn't run into that info, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if it's out there.
All right. No moves have been made for me in NBA, and either with Teddy at this point. No moves have been made. So we'll see if that changes throughout the day. Let's move on to NCAA basketball. Teddy Covers, have you made any moves on this NCAA basketball card?
I have, but I want to ask you a question first.
Sure.
You've been through the card yourself. You just went through the card a second time with me. You say, I just don't see anything. I don't like anything. But I'm going to look at it again. And I don't argue with that conceptually. All that said, it's a 4-game NBA card, man. You don't see it. Tomorrow's a new day. You don't have to force NBA action on any given day or any given week. So that's just my, I wouldn't play anything if I was you, personally, unless the markets move significantly between now and then.
The one thing that I find appealing is what Rico Money's angle is, the Hornets early. Borrego is going to demand some accountability. And you have the Wizards coming off a game against the Clippers that was a high-profile spot. And then going into Charlotte, sleepy Charlotte, where there's going to be 12,000, 11,000 fans in the crowd. That's the only thing that I was just kind of, I need to sit with for a little longer. But it would be the Hornets early. What do you think of because Rico Money, great capper, what do you think of his thought process there about backing the Hornets early?
I certainly wouldn't talk him out of it. It's not anything that piqued my interest. So good luck. I hope it cashes.
Okay. Let's keep rolling into college basketball, Teddy. We have Bryant University, Fordham already off, and that was my fault. In my head, I was like, okay, I'll ask him about that right off the top so we could hear, but my fault there. What moves have you made on this card? Big game with Maryland, Penn State. A big game with Louisville, Texas Tech. There's some nice-looking games out here, and then we have Butler, Baylor late this evening. Have you made any moves on this card?
I have. I took, the Jimmy V Classic tonight, obviously, Louisville, Texas Tech, Indiana, UConn. I took UConn plus. Against Indiana. Indiana looked pretty lost on the highway against Wisconsin the other night. And UConn has been nothing but an undervalued commodity from day one this year. I got a 2.5 in my pocket. The market's at 1.5 now. I think UConn wins the game. So that's one that absolutely stood out to me. Where I'm still a little bit surprised by the number, but I'm not that surprised by the number because UConn came into the season and their Ken Palm rankings aren't as high, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm a Huskies believer on the defensive end of the court. And of course, defense travels. So I think UConn wins that game in the Jimmy V Classic. I put some St. Joe's in my pocket. These Big Five rivalry games in Philadelphia, you just take the dog, hold your nose, and then do what you do. The last time either of in Temple and St. Joe, of course, they play every year. Last time either team won by double digits was like 2012 or 2013. It tends to be a competitive game, and I'm just betting the series there. I could care what the power ratings are. Those games, you take the points, especially when it's double digits. So I got St. Joe's in my pocket, betting number 603. I got them plus 12.5. The markets are 11.5 right now. Again, I think it's going to be a single-digit game. If you didn't get the best of it, I certainly wouldn't talk you out of making a smaller-sized wager at a lesser number. I bet against New Mexico State. I'm not the Aggies on the highway are not a team to be laying double digits. and I know that the Pioneers aren't any good. I understand that, and if I get my ass handed to me in this game, so be it. But I think New Mexico State's priced in the wrong range right now. I thought they were priced in the wrong range over the weekend, where they were chalk in a game that they lost on the road. Well, it was a neutral site, but it was in against Washington State, and I think this is priced a good notch too higher than I thought it should be. BYU minus 7.5. That's 8 right now. Nevada's been living on 3-point shooting. I don't know that that's going to work in Provo. That 3-point shooting's been through the roof. I trust BYU to hit 3-pointers a lot more than I trust Nevada to hit 3-pointers tonight. And I trust BYU to hit their free throws more than I trust Nevada to hit their free throws. And I think BYU wins that one comfortably. So, I mean, there's my take. St. Joe's, BYU, Denver, UConn.
I like it. So we have UConn plus 2.5, St. Joe's plus 12.5, Denver plus 11, or did you get a hook on the Denver spot?
I got 11.5 with Denver, and you can still get 11.5 with Denver.
11.5, and what did you get with BYU?
7.5. That's 8s right now.
7.5, beautiful.
I laid 7.5. 8 is widely available. 8's everywhere right now, but 7.5 was everywhere less than an hour ago. Beautiful.
And also Mark Unkefer, making sure that I'm pronouncing his name right. And anybody whose name I'm not pronouncing right, please, I'm going to be saying it over and over and over again. I don't want every time I say it to annoy you. So let me know if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Mark Unkefer. Take the H out. Okay, I've got it. Unkefer. Questions coming in. Chris Brady liking your action on today's card, but questions coming in wanting to hear your take on Maryland Penn State that opened up at -1, and it's pretty much a pick'em everywhere else, or it's become a pick'em, I should say. Maryland Penn State. You have a feel here?
I could only lay with Maryland in that game. I'm a Maryland believer. I didn't pull the trigger. I think it's going to be a tough. I mean, that to me is a coin flip type of game. It really is. But if I was going to play it, it'd be Terps or pass. And again, I pick them where you're legitimately getting the best of the number in a game where they were 1.5 or 2 earlier. Wouldn't talk you out of that, but it really feels like a last possession type of ball game. And when it's priced by pick 'em, and I think it's going to come down to that, I don't usually get involved. Terps or pass. I'm a Maryland believer.
Terps or pass. And then the other marquee game is Louisville in action tonight at Texas Tech. Texas Tech. Louisville opening up at -7, now -6. A couple 6.5s on the board. What do you think of number 1 ranked Louisville here tonight?
Under. Here's your under. Louisville, I'm a believer in Louisville. Did you see what they did to Michigan? Michigan's a really good offensive team. What was that game? 58-43. Texas Tech doesn't want to push. To me, that game screams under. And, of course, it's already been bad. It opened as high as 130.5. Now it's 126, 126.5. I still would play. I mean, I'm not going to recommend anyone gets 5 points, the worst of it. But that's the way totals are sometimes. You're not going to get the very best of it. And then the markets move very quickly. But if I had to play a game, I would absolutely expect a defensive scrum in this one. I don't think we're going to see a lot of transition baskets. I don't think we're going to see a lot of easy looks in a half court. So unless it's a foul fest, which it could be, but if they referee it reasonably, that game stays under.
Then we have the Butler-Baylor spot just before your Connecticut look this evening. Baylor opening up at -5. It's come to 5.5 at Pinnacle, 6 at the other books. Total opened up at 130, now 131. You have a feel here?
I really had no sense for that game at all. I spent about 2 minutes with it and moved on. I'm not sure that I'm buying Butler's hot start, and the markets aren't really either. In terms of them being a top 25 team. I'm not saying that they're not good. I'm saying at this level, Baylor's at this level. Okay, Baylor's a legit top 20 team. I'm not sure Butler's there. So if I had to play it, it would be the favorite. But it's not one that I wasn't ready to stand in front of Butler yet. You know what I mean? The time will come, but it wasn't today for me.
All right, time will come, but not today. I got you, Dave Chmelio. Chamilio, see, we can do this. I don't want to annoy you guys every time I say your name. All right, let's move into college football right now. Already heard that Teddy liked Buffalo. That opened up at 4.5. It's now at 5.5 or 6. Buffalo, Charlotte. That takes place Friday, December 20th. On Saturday, December 14th, we have Army Navy playing each other, and our very own Noli Knows, the man who's making unders great again, is liking the under here. It opened up at 41, now at 41 at Bookmaker, but 40.5 everywhere else. What do you think of Noli taking the under? I know that historically it's been a nice look. What do you think Army Navy under on Saturday, December 14th?
Yeah, I mean, the Service Academy games tend to be very low scoring. Because obviously they know what the other team's running far better than most of their opponents do. And you don't see the big chunk plays in these games as often as you see them when, Army plays Hawaii or, Navy plays East Carolina or, the moral equivalent thereof. So the under makes a ton of sense. At 40.5, 41, that's real low, I mean, you're praying that it's again. And the one other thing with Army Navy is that it's not going to be a game with 15 possessions for each side. The drives will be time consuming, so it all makes sense for unders. But to me, that total's a good notch or two lower than I'd be comfortable betting an under in this one. Clear pass for me. I don't see any significant edges in this one.
When we look at market moves in these bowl games, we've seen people heed your advice or your thoughts, at least, with USC. Iowa opening up as a 2.5-point favorite now, 1.5-point favorite. We've also seen a 2-point move with Texas A&M. Pinnacle opened that up at -4 at -117. It's now -6 at -107. Do you agree with the 2-point move towards Texas A&M up against Oklahoma State?
So I can certainly understand it. I don't know that I agree with it, but I can A&M beat all the weaker teams that they were supposed to beat this year. But they also faced, Georgia, Clemson, Alabama. They played everybody. And it was a little bit of a nightmare for them in those step-up games. And at the end of the season against LSU, they just did, there was nothing left. They didn't have another step-up game in them. This isn't a step-up game. And Okie State is not an elite team. They're good. They're not elite. And in theory, it's just, again, I can totally understand the move towards A&M, a team whose season didn't end on the note they wanted it to, but is more than capable of beating a team like Oklahoma State. These early sharp moves, stand in front of them at your risk, at your own risk. I'll leave it at that. I totally understand the money on the Aggies, although I haven't bet it yet, and I'm not convinced I will.
Interesting. LaShare Hughes, LaShare, let me know if I'm pronouncing that first name wrong. Wondering about this Notre Dame spot. We have questions coming in. I'll get to yours right after, Paco, my man. Iowa State, Notre Dame. Notre Dame opening up at 3.5. There is a 4 on the board now at Bookmaker. This total at 57. What do you think of Iowa State, Notre Dame?
I have really mixed feelings on the game. I really do. Part of me thinks that Iowa State is capable. I don't like betting teams that were playing for a championship a year ago, and this year they're on a 9 a.m. start at the Camping World Bowl. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to get there with Notre Dame. I'm not. I'm not convinced that Iowa State's going to pique their interest the appropriate way. I don't love the comments from the Irish. And Cyclones have lost more than their fair share of tight competitive games this year, but they're a defensive-minded underdog with a quarterback who makes plays and a coach that we like, and a coach that we like getting points. So my initial lean is probably taking the points with Iowa State. I haven't pulled the trigger. Not that close. The only thing I was really close to pulling the trigger on, and I may well do when we get off air, you're going to hate this, but Sparty falls into a system. Michigan State falls into a system that has been extremely profitable in bowl seasons against Wake Forest. I want to see what the Wake QB situation is. You can find a 3 right now. with the Spartans. And the system is really simple. It's as simple as it gets. Teams that are 25% ATS during the regular season and make bowl games, I think it's 16-2 ATS the last 18 tries. There's no bandwagon. Okay, nobody wants them, and those teams tend to perform well. So at 3, I'll get to the window with Sparty. Haven't done it yet, but that may well be in my pocket before we meet tomorrow.
Sparty at 3, interesting. We're going to talk about that game much more as we're moving forward. Paco Healy, our Paco Healy, his home, great home of San Diego. He is our San Diego expert, and he wants to know what you think about the San Diego State Central Michigan under 40.5. Let me move over to that game. That's on Saturday, December 21st. It opened up at 41, so there's been a slight move. Let me see this move to the under at Pinnacle, how many cents it is exactly before we get over to Teddy. It opened up under 41 minus 108. It's now under 41 at minus 113. Bookmaker hanging the hook at 41.5. What do you think about trying to get under this total with Central Michigan and San Diego State?
So conceptually, it's really hard to see these two teams marching up and down the field, scoring touchdowns in bunches. When we talk about what's the strength of the Aztecs, their defensive line blows everybody up, and their secondary is really good. Talk about what's the strength of the Chippewas. Their defensive line blows everything. I don't know if their secondary is as good, but their defensive line is an elite level unit. Problem is, we're talking about a total of 41. And we are talking about, we're not necessarily dynamic offenses, but offenses that can move the football. These aren't 3-and-out offenses on either side over and over again. And it felt like San Diego State left so many points on the board. Over and over again, they would just find ways to not get points or not get touchdowns. They'd be first and goal at the 1-inch line, and they'd end up, settling for 3, and then the field goal would go wide. I mean, they had game after game scenarios like that. The Fresno State game there was like 40 of those. They could have won that game by 6 touchdowns, and they ended up, being a sweat. So to make a short story long, the under here makes sense. I worry about unders that make sense in bowl season, and I probably won't get to the window with this one.
And Paul Costa, we will have to hit your question tomorrow. We've got lots of time before these bowl games, and we have Teddy Monday through Friday. Rod, just hit me on Twitter. Tuesdays are actually a really bad day for me because I have the Audible today at 4 p.m. Eastern, so I don't really have a chance to breathe. But Wednesday, Thursday are good, really good days for me to connect. Teddy Covers, thank you so much for joining us. A little recap of Teddy's NCAA basketball action is on UConn plus 2.5, St. Joe's plus 12.5, Denver plus 11.5, and BYU minus 7.5. Teddy Covers, thank you so much for joining us. Follow this man on Twitter at Teddy_Covers, and he can be found here Monday to Friday every morning, and we love having him. Thank you so much for joining us, Teddy. Let's have a big day. Let's get back here tomorrow feeling really good about ourselves.
I like the concept, Jimmy. I like it a lot. Best of luck, guys. Always a pleasure hanging out with the low baggers and Jimmy in the mornings. Look forward to doing it again tomorrow. Good luck tonight, guys.
There he is, Teddy Covers. Teddy Covers on UConn plus 2.5, St. Joe's plus 12.5, Denver plus 11.5, and BYU minus 7.5.